You are standing at the base of a mountain so tall the peak is lost in a thick grey fog. You've been told your entire life that the only way to find truth or find security is to climb this mountain, one exhausting step at a time. But as you climb, you notice something staggering. The higher you go, the thinner the air becomes, and the more disconnected you feel from the ground where life actually happens. This metaphor is the startling reality of how our world is built. We live inside a massive, invisible hierarchical architecture that dictates everything from the taxes you pay to the way your neighbourhood is policed. It is an ancient design, a relic of a time from the Neolithic Revolution, around 12,000 to 10,000 years ago, yet it remains the blueprint for our modern existence. If you have ever felt like a mere cog in a governmental machine that doesn't care about your name or your reality, it is because you are living under the weight of a traditional hierarchy that has outlived its purpose. Part 1. The slow suffocation of the human voice. The angst of the modern citizen is the feeling of being unheard. We look at our government and see a jarring lack of movement. When a crisis hits, whether it is a local environmental disaster or a global economic shift, the response is often slow, painful, and drowning in paperwork. This happens because hierarchies are built like a game of telephone played across 1,000 rooms. A brilliant idea starts at the bottom, from someone who actually sees the problem on the street, but by the time it reaches the person with the power to sign the check, it has been filtered, watered down, and stripped of its meaning. This is a stunning waste of human potential. This slower decision-making isn't just an administrative hiccup, it is a heart-stopping failure of empathy. While the layers of management deliberate, real people experience real pain. Beyond the speed, there is the sickening reality of siloed communication. In government, there are departments acting like rival kingdoms, hoarding information as if it were gold. This lack of horizontal collaboration makes it nearly impossible to solve the messy, interconnected problems of the 21st century. You can't fix a housing crisis without talking to transportation, and you can't fix transportation without talking to environmental agencies. Yet these silos remain, creating a bewildering maze for anyone trying to get a straight answer. We feel like we are shouting into a void because the system is literally designed to prevent information from flowing freely. It is a foul way to run a society, and it leads to a staggering level of burnout for those trapped within the machine. Part 2. The corruption of the climb. There is a dark, psychological toll that comes with hierarchies. Research suggests something truly shocking. The more layers a government has, the more corrupt it is. When power is concentrated at a distant peak, it creates a breeding ground for opportunistic behaviour. It turns public service into a Hunger Games-style competition where the goal isn't to help the community, but to climb the ladder. This creates a shameful environment where ethics are traded for titles. At the top, leaders become insulated from the consequences of their actions, living in a reality that has nothing to do with the person struggling to pay rent. At the bottom, citizens feel a crying need for autonomy but are silenced by those above. Stifled innovation is one of the most appalling parts of the whole structure. Think about the incredible ideas that have been lost because a mid-level manager didn't want to look bad, or because a policy written in 1954 forbids doing things differently. This is an unbelievable drain on our collective intelligence. We are essentially forcing our brightest minds to work with their hands tied behind their backs. Humans are naturally creative and cooperative, but hierarchies demand that we be obedient and predictable. It is a fundamental clash between who we are and how we are governed, and it leaves us feeling hollow and cynical. Part 3. Breaking the chains of the power elite. To understand why this feels so oppressive, we have to look back at the thinkers who saw this coming. Jean-Jacques Rousseau once dropped a classic truth that still echoes today. Man is born free, and everywhere he is in chains. He looked at the hierarchies of his time and saw them as a horrific distortion of the general will. He believed that for a government to be legitimate, the structure had to be a collective pact among equals, not a master-servant relationship. When we look at our current state through Rousseau's eyes, the inequality we see isn't just an unfortunate accident, it's a feature of the design. Then you have Wright Mills, who spoke of the power elite. He argued that modern hierarchies naturally result in a tiny, interconnected group of leaders who make the big calls behind closed doors. This isn't a conspiracy theory, it's a social reality. When the structure is a pyramid, the view from the top is very exclusive. This elite group often loses the ability to empathize with the base, hypo-empathy, leading to decisions that feel totally alienated from the lives of ordinary people. It's a disconcerting thought that our lives are shaped by people who don't know our names and never will. John Locke said that government should only exist by the consent of the governed. If the hierarchy stops protecting our natural rights to life and liberty, it loses its right to exist. The burning question of our time is whether we still give that consent or if we are just participating out of habit and fear. Part 4. A new architecture of belonging. If the old mountain is crumbling, what do we build in its place? This is where things get truly interesting. We are starting to see the rise of scalable alternatives that feel more like a living forest than a rigid pyramid. One alternative is a system of federation and modular networks. Instead of one central brain trying to control everything, power is distributed among self-governing nodes, such as local councils or specialized groups that are linked together but independent. If one node fails, it doesn't take the whole system down. It's a spectacular way to build resilience. It's the difference between a glass ladder and a chainmail suit. One is fragile and the other is nearly impossible to break. Then there is the concept of holacracy and circle-based governance. This is a jaw-dropping shift where authority isn't tied to a person's title, but to the task at hand. People work in circles with specific roles and a clear purpose. Decisions are made through consent, keeping the deciding close to the doing. It recognizes that the person closest to the problem usually has the best solution. It's about responsible autonomy, or what some call hierarchy. In this reality, the value of different types of knowledge is recognized equally. A scientist's input is just as vital as a community organizer's input. It's a sublime vision of a world where we interact as peers rather than subjects. This relational egalitarianism is the antidote to the oppression of the hierarchy. It creates a space where every human being has inherent dignity, regardless of their role in the system. Part 5. The power of the liquid vote. Perhaps the most phenomenal shift on the horizon is the idea of a liquid democracy. This is a form of delegative democracy that uses technology to give us back our agency. Instead of picking a representative every 4 years and hoping for the best, you can vote directly on issues that matter to you. If you don't have the time or the expertise to vote on a complex environmental bill, you can delegate your vote to someone you trust, such as a scientist, a friend, or a local activist. But here's the key. You can take that vote back at any second. It prevents the formation of a permanent political class. It turns governance into a living, breathing conversation rather than a static decree. This isn't some unthinkable sci-fi dream. The tools to do this exist right now. What's missing is the collective will to demand it. Implementing these models requires a staggering shift in our culture. We have to move away from the idea that someone in charge will save us and move toward the idea that we are all responsible for each other. It's about choosing a messy, vibrant freedom over a neat, suffocating order. This is a notable challenge, but the alternative is to continue sliding into a state of permanent oppression, burnout, and cynicism. Part 6. Why your existence depends on this shift. To see these philosophical shifts in action, we have to look at the laboratories of democracy, which are the cities and organizations that have dared to tear down the old hierarchical mountain. One of the most eye-opening examples is the Dutch home care organisation, Buurtzorg. This is a massive healthcare entity with over 15,000 employees, but, and this is the shocking part, no traditional bosses. Instead, nurses work in small, independent teams of about 12. They make their own schedules, rent their own offices, and decide how to best care for their specific neighbourhoods. By cutting out the middle management that usually suffocates healthcare, they've achieved better patient outcomes at lower costs, proving that when you trust professionals to be autonomous, they flourish. On a city level, we look at places like Vallentuna, Sweden, a suburb of Stockholm, where a local party called Demo-X has experimented with liquid democracy. For over a decade, they've held a seat in the local parliament where the representative didn't vote based on their own ego, but based on a real-time internet vote by the citizens. This is a stunning bypass of the power elite. Suddenly the gatekeepers were gone and the general will was being piped directly into the halls of power. It's a remarkable blueprint for how we might reclaim our voice in the digital age. Then there is the staggering success of the squad model used by companies like Spotify, which has started to influence how modern public agencies think about project management. Instead of a vertical chain of command, they use cross-functional squads that own their work from start to finish. This modular approach is catching on in government IT departments and crisis response units. During the Iraq War, the US Army found that traditional top-down commands were too slow to handle the chaos. They shifted toward empowering highly trained, decentralized units to make real-time decisions while staying connected to a central information hub. This was a move from a command and control mindset to a team of teams alternative. Even more astounding is the integration of blockchain technology in local governance. Cities are starting to use decentralized ledgers for things like land registries and transparent public spending. In places like Estonia, the government has become a digital pioneer, using a flat networked infrastructure to allow citizens to vote, pay taxes, and access health records in seconds. This moves us away from being subjects who wait in line and toward being nodes in a high-speed, high-trust network. Part 7. your role in the new design. The meaning of these examples is clear. The hierarchy is not an inevitability, it is a choice. Egalitarian structures have deep roots, emerging in hunter-gatherer societies for most of human history. Paleolithic era, about 2.5 million to 10,000 years ago, as small bands shared power. We are witnessing the rebirth of a world where collaboration is more valuable than competition, and where the general will is finally finding its digital wings. This is why you should care, because the architecture of your society is being redesigned right now, and you have the tools to be one of the architects. The choice is yours. You can continue to climb the crumbling hierarchical ladder of the old world, or you can start building the networks of the new one. The reality of connection, meaning, and collective freedom is waiting for you to stop looking up for permission and start looking across at your fellow citizens.